Hello, everyone. This is Nightwatch N8, your host of the Nightwatch Podcast. This is not a fashion statement tonight. It's a survival item. I'm high up here in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, in the dead of winter, wee morning hours. And the temperature outside currently reads minus 10 degrees and dropping. The temperature inside here in the Nightwatch Mobile, it ain't a whole lot warmer. The only thing to keep me warm is these machines behind me and a little space heater on the ground that I gotta keep shutting off every time I want to record. Otherwise, all you'd hear is a bunch of noise. But I do all this for you guys. Okay? No guilt trip. It's all positivity tonight. Well, except for the topic I gotta cover. Yeah, that's right. Once again, it's our old buddy Bill Gates. I don't know why, I just can't have enough of this guy. The more I read about him, the more I want to hit him in the face with a pie, or maybe something a little more or less pliable. Perhaps that's my little devil on my shoulder speaking. In any case, I did come prepared like any good Sherpa. Brought myself a cup of hot chai. It's almost empty though. I almost drank it all, unfortunately. But here's to you guys. Cheers. There's nothing like warm, not quite hot. It's actually kind of cold already. There's nothing like homemade chai. Get you through the winter. Yeah, I had another show actually planned for tonight, but then this one hit me. This article popped up, our buddy Bill, he's at it again, he just cannot quit, this guy. He's a ball of energy. It might be, the seething energies of Lucifer, the fallen one, the false god of this world, but he's a ball of energy. This guy's bound and determined to get as many notches, as high a kill streak as he can before the guy soon rots in his grave and faces the wrath of God. But one can only pray, right? So I saw this article. Bill Gates spends nearly $1 billion to acquire a stake in Heineken. And I'm not sure if it was mentioned in this article, but Heineken is the second largest brewer in the world. On Friday, Bill Gates, the world's fifth richest person, they say, acquired a 3.76% stake in a Heineken holding NV. According to a filing with the Netherlands Financial Markets Authority, and from what I read from a different article, this triggered kind of a warning because it was such a high purchase that they had to publish the purchase of these shares. Gates purchased 6.65 million shares of the company directly and another 4.18 million shares through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Trust. The value of Gates' stake was worth about $899 million, or roughly $1 billion, as of markets close Friday. Gates purchased the shares from Mexican company FEMSA, which sold all 18 shares it held. And so out of those 18 shares, I think Bill walked away with a healthy 10.5 million shares. It's not too bad, right? For one man. This is a bit of an unexpected purchase for Gates, who said in an Ask Me Anything thread in 2018 that he's, quote, not a big beer drinker. Quote, when I end up at something like a baseball game, I drink light beer to get with the vibe of all the other beer drinkers, Gates wrote. Sorry to disappoint real beer drinkers. Beyond his personal beer drinking habits, or lack thereof, this acquisition is surprising for another reason. Last year, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funded a study about the health risks of alcohol consumption. The study proclaimed that, quote, stronger interventions are needed. And I don't know about all y'all, but I used to, drink my fair share of beer. Recently gave up that habit because for health concerns. My stomach was wrecked, and I was getting dehydrated pretty easily. It's hard enough up here in the high desert of the Rocky Mountains to stay hydrated. So I gave up drinking, and I guess my And I guess my testimony here for y'all tonight is that I do feel better. I have less headaches in the morning. My neck doesn't bother me so much. And overall, I just think I'm feeling better. So thankfully, I have given up alcohol for now. Cross my fingers, right? But if anybody else, if you've ever walked into a doctor's office and they had you fill out a survey, one of the questions they always ask is, do you consume alcohol, right? And it's for a reason, because it is related to a lot of different increases in health complications later on in life. Cancer risks go up. Of course, any kind of filtration organs you have in your body that have to continually process that alcohol, it's going to lead to higher risks of different cancers and disease, health problems later in life. So yeah, it's ironic that Bill Gates wants to invest in beer. And it just reminded me of a quote from Orwell, of course, the book 1984. Quote, "So long as they, the proles, continue to work and breed, their other activities were without importance. Left to themselves like cattle turned loose upon the plains of Argentina, they had reverted to a lifestyle, or a style of life, that appeared to be natural to them. A sort of ancestral pattern. Heavy physical work, the care of home and children, petty quarrels with neighbors, films, football, beer, and above all, gambling filled the horizon of their minds. To keep them in control was not difficult." So I think it's interesting, right off the heels of the big game, right? The Super Bowl, football and beer. Now you have Bill Gates investing a minority stake in the second largest beer manufacturer in the world. So even if you don't give up beer entirely, here's the greatest bad PR campaign you can imagine for Heineken, right? At least don't drink Heineken. Stuff tastes like garbage anyway. So I thought it was kind of ironic, Bill Gates buying into beer now, when he's so concerned about, the little things in life, like cholesterol in our eggs. Like he put it in this tweet, lots of reasons to rethink how eggs fit into the hashtag future of food. At HC Foods has created a lower cholesterol alternative. And so there's this article. What happens, this is from the LA Times, what happens when Bill Gates attacks world hunger? Chickenless eggs. It's from September 2013. Bill Gates has made it his mission to tackle malaria, sanitization in developing countries, better education programs, and now he's turned his attention to food. The Microsoft billionaire is tackling world hunger, and he's doing it with a fox egg powder. Call them chickenless eggs. Bill Gates, along with Peter Thiel, the PayPal founder, through the Founders Fund, has backed Hampton Creek Foods, a company that focuses on creating plant-based, soy and gluten-free alternatives to eggs. Gates has been vocal about his efforts to curb meat consumption on his website, The Gates Notes, and shows Hampton Creek Foods as one of 3 companies contributing to the future of food. Because we all know that Bill Gates is the author of our future, right? And no, not my future, Billy Goat Gates. Not in this lifetime. Quote, "Raising meat takes a great deal of land and water and has substantial environmental impact," writes Gates. Put simply, there's no way to produce enough meat for 9 billion people. So the guy who's running around buying up all the farmland in the USA and around the world, super concerned with, there's not enough land and water to produce all this meat to, feed the starving world. So I thought I'd kind of juxtapose this argument laid out by the world's greatest doctor and scientist, Bill Gates. And I thought I'd go straight to the NIH.gov website, and there's this little study, by some names that I can't pronounce here. Fernandez and Pugliese. and some other guys that have like Oriental names. Anyway, the health benefits of egg protein, right? NIH website right here. And they always start out with the abstract. I'll skip below here, save you some time. Egg protein has been shown to so again, Bill Gates is super concerned with feeding the world, right? That's his main driving factor around supporting meat alternatives, right? Right at the beginning of this abstract for this study that was done here, submitted to the NIH, egg protein has been shown to decrease malnutrition in underdeveloped countries, possibly increase height in children, and protect against, I don't know what that is, kwashiorkor. It's really hard to pronounce. Some kind of disease, I assume. Egg protein has been demonstrated to be important to skeletal muscle health and protective against sarcopenia. Egg protein can also decrease appetite, resulting in a reduction in the caloric intake from the next meal and weight reduction. Other protective effects of eggs protein addressed in this review include protection against infection, as well as hypotensive and anti-cancer effects. So I just skip down to the highlighted portions I thought were most interesting to the topic at hand tonight. Because of the evidence that children's physical growth can be improved and malnutrition can be prevented with increased egg consumption, there is a need to promote these messages to families who live in poverty and make them aware of the low cost of this remarkably complete protein and the reported benefits for infants and children. And eggs are moderate in calories. And so again, flying in the face of the science according to Bill Gates, eggs are moderate in calories, containing 72 calories for one large egg, with 6.3 grams of high-quality protein. Therefore, consumption of eggs provide a simple, inexpensive way for people to meet their protein needs. In fact, eggs have been reported to be the most digestible protein source by the World Health Organization, right? Of which Bill Gates is the majority stake owner in, right? So he should know about all this science, you'd think. Eggs are reported to be the most digestible protein source by the WHO, measured as 97% compared to 95% for dairy and 94% for meat, and have the highest PDCAAS score. As indicated above, soy and wheat protein are also converted to urea at higher rates, reducing the amount of protein available to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So, again, Bill Gates, big stake owner in Monsanto, now Bayer. Meat substitutes, majority of which have soy protein in it, right? In this study, muscle protein synthesis was greater with consumption of diets containing protein from eggs or whey as compared to soy or wheat, and rats consuming wheat protein had 20% higher body fat than the other groups after 11 weeks. So, of course, in this country, we have a big problem with obesity, right? So you have all these, like, quote-unquote health alternatives with, like wheat, all these different protein sources that may or may not necessarily be better than the real thing, right? If you read the ingredients sometimes in some of these meat substitutes, yeah, you can't understand what half of what it is, list this long, right? But yeah, they're super concerned about world health and feeding the poor, right, guys? And so this article ends with here's a little nifty graph, or graph they put together. Egg protein, all the things it does. It's a low cost, decreases caloric intake for the next meal, protects versus infection, blood pressure, anti-cancer effects, skeletal muscle health, muscle mass, right? Sarcopenia in elderly, I guess that's maybe how you pronounce it. And so again, that's a study on the NIH.gov's own website, right? Not sure if you've checked that one, Billy, but you might want to check that study. Just kind of do a little refresher course, you know? So this article applied as well, I believe. You know, the leading cause of death in the world is malnutrition. And yet all the developing countries had such huge hearts, you know, for the world population, that they put it a higher priority to get as much of the world population injected as possible to keep us all safe from COVID, right, guys? So, man, couldn't that money have been spent on a little something more important like malnutrition? For this article, malnutrition is the leading cause of death globally. And this is something that I brought up during the scamdemic. May 13th, 2020, this article was written. A broken food production system that favors industrial agriculture is endangering the health of humanity and the planet, according to a new report. And it goes on, globally, nearly 1 in 9 people, or 820 million people, are hungry or undernourished, and 132 million people live with acute hunger that approaches starvation. The World Food Program warns that COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic could double the number of people living with acute hunger by the end of the year. That's another argument that was made, you know, with a lot of these lockdown procedures and wrecking of local economies, shutting everything down. You know, what kind of impact is that going to have on world hunger, right? And I have a feeling that a lot of this stuff, which is a direct result of a lot of these tyrannical measures taken across the world, a lot of these direct byproducts, millions dead, probably being pretty well underreported at this point, I would think. Or at least you can be sure that, you know, those two data points are never connected. The article goes on, disparities in nutrition access largely stem from a global food system that centers on industrial agriculture, according to the report. Rather than growing and distributing food that improves the health of people and maintains the integrity of local environments, industrial agriculture prioritizes high-yield, high-profit crops that degrade landscapes and often get turned into highly processed foods. Right? Bill Gates, right? Like Bill Gates' little egg powder. It's going to feed the world, right? I mean, it can't be any more nutritious than that, can it? And so this article popped up on Google, top of the list, entitled "The Use of Epidemiological Tools in Conflict-Affected Populations. Open Access Educational Research for Policymakers." And under the chapter Malnutrition and Mortality, it states, malnutrition and mortality are usually closely linked. Acute protein energy malnutrition mainly leads to death by increasing the susceptibility of malnourished individuals to infectious diseases, and once infected, increasing the severity and duration of these diseases. Thus, if organisms which cause important infectious diseases, diarrhea, pneumonia, malaria, measles, etc., isn't that interesting? I thought that other article just mentioned how Bill Gates was tackling malaria, world hunger. So yeah, Bill Gates is super concerned about our health. Totally unrelated article here. You know, I just thought I'd share. Not sure if anybody else caught this. This was from February 16th, so not too long ago. Though according to Twitter standards, this is just prehistoric. New Idaho Bill to charge those who administer mRNA vaccines with a misdemeanor. Isn't that crazy? Like, why, right, guys? And so according to this article, Representative Judy Boyle, Republican, of course, right, and Senator Tammy Nichols, Republican, sponsored House Bill 154. According to the bill text, quote, a person may not provide or administer a vaccine developed using messenger ribonucleic acid technology for use in an individual or any other mammal in the state. So they're even getting into mammals, right? Like your food source, maybe? There's been some of that talk even from Bill Gates about vaccinating the food source. In fact, a person who violates this bill is guilty of a misdemeanor. And, as a lot of people put it, it's, in theory, that's kind of a light sentence, really, if you think about it. Possibilities, other things I can't mention. Can't even read the rest of this article on this platform. I'm pretty sure you all know. Wouldn't want to get hit in the chest, right? Too hard. Might get that commotio cordis. So yeah, fascinating enough. They included all mammals there. And believe it or not, yes, my hands are freezing, so I'm usually keeping them in my pockets as I speak here. Not speaking too much with my hands tonight, as you might notice. Another article here with Mr. Shifty himself. He's always got that little devilish smirk on his face, right? I mean, wouldn't you just love to wipe it off his face? Like that guy that hit him in the face with a pie. Maybe something a little more less pliable. I don't know. Maybe that's just devil on my shoulder speaking. Bill Gates wants to make cows great again. It's from 2018. So, he's covered every angle, this guy, right? Microsoft founder Bill Gates has a novel idea for fighting poverty among farmers, breeding better cows. Now, this guy is such a contradiction, right? I thought he just talked about eliminating meat from the diet. Well, now he's working on genetically engineering better cows to feed the hungry masses, of course. So Billy Goat Gates, the mad scientist himself, BBC reported Friday that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation will invest millions of dollars to promote the health and productivity of livestock. Kind of like the health and productivity of Africans. He's doing a great job at that too, isn't he? Through research by Global Alliance for Livestock Veterinarian Medicines, for over 1 billion people living in the world's poorest countries, agriculture and livestock are a lifeline out of poverty. Gates said Friday, you can sell the output, and that's money for school fees. You can keep the output, and that's diet diversification. Okay. Through their charitable organization, I just love how unbiased these articles are, right, guys? Through their charitable organizations, the Gateses are pumping $40 million into research to create more efficient and more resilient cows. The financial injection will help make vaccines, medicines, and diagnosis accessible to millions of the world's poorest smallholder farmers. BBC explained. The Times of London added that some efforts will be made to crossbreed existing breeds of cows in an attempt to capitalize on the best traits of each one. Quote, we need animals with the ability to have a high rate of feed conversion and others that tolerate extreme variance in temperatures, a professor involved in the research said. And of course, Billy Goat Gates is so concerned with being productive, right? As opposed to reproductive. Gates is optimistic that his investment will go a long way. Quote, the impact per dollar we spend is super high in Africa, he said. You can have a cow that is 4 times as productive, he told the BBC. Right, so there's Gates again playing God. Psychopath control freak that he is. Bill Gates of Hell Gates. Buying up the food source, buying up the farmland, poisoning all life as we know it on the planet. all in the name of feeding the world, philanthropy. And Bill Gates is backing a startup tackling cow burps and farts. This article is from January 24th, 2023, not too long ago. There he is again, Kermit the Frog. So this startup that they're investing in, called a Ruminate, like the spelling. And it turns out burps can be big business, this article writes. This is the world we're living in. This is the world that the poor kids have to grow up in these days. Billionaire Bill Gates has announced an investment in Australian startup Ruminate. I like that spelling, don't you? Which is developing a seaweed-based feed to reduce the methane emissions cows produce through their burps and, to a lesser extent, farts. So not only is Bill, tampering with our food source, he's tampering with our food source. Which brings me to another article here. Tinge on the dark side. Grow and eat your own vaccines? Can I? Really? Please? September 16th, 2021. There it is, that beautiful, wholesome, healthy-looking green head of lettuce. The future of vaccines may look more like eating a salad than getting a shot in the arm. UC Riverside scientists are studying whether they can turn edible plants like lettuce into mRNA vaccine factories. I can't wait. What about you guys? I'll be gobbling that stuff up. They don't even want to label GMO foods at this point. You can be pretty damn well sure they're not going to label mRNA vaccinated produce. Even your local Whole Foods, right? One of the challenges with this new technology is that it must be kept cold to maintain stability during transport and storage. If this new project is successful, fingers crossed, plant-based mRNA vaccines, which can be eaten, could overcome this challenge with an ability to be stored at room temperature. The project's goal is made possible by a $500,000 grant from the National Science Foundation. Keep that in mind. I'll get back to that later. The goals are threefold: showing that DNA containing the mRNA vaccines can be successfully delivered into the part of the plant cells where it will replicate, demonstrating the plants can produce enough mRNA to rival a traditional shot, and finally determining the right dosage. I bet you those plants are just going to be scrumptious, right? It's loaded full of mRNA nanoparticles. It's got to be. I'm sure they're only going to be served at the fanciest restaurants at first, right? Only for the rich. Leftist, most likely. Ideally, a single plant would produce enough mRNA to vaccinate a single person, said Juan Pablo Geraldo. We are testing this approach with spinach and lettuce and have long-term goals of people growing it in their own gardens. Think of nothing I'd rather grow in our garden. Farmers could also eventually grow entire fields of it. And there's some imagery. Chloroplast, magnetic color in leaves expressing a green fluorescent protein. The DNA encoding for the protein was delivered by targeting nanomaterials without mechanical aid by applying a droplet of nanoformula into the leaf surface. Tasty. Our idea is to repurpose naturally occurring nanoparticles, namely plant viruses, for gene delivery to plants. And this guy ends with, "I'm very excited about all this research," Geraldo said. "I think it could have a huge impact on people's lives." I bet it could, Geraldo. So yeah, I was curious about the National Science Foundation, and wouldn't you know it? And this is from their own website, the nsf.gov website. National Science Foundation announces partnership with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to foster sustainable agricultural solutions around the world. You gotta love it. So yeah, they have their own award program called BREAD, right? Basic research to enable agricultural development. And from another famous quote, one that I'm sure you've all heard. This is from the full quote. Already long ago, from when we sold our vote to no man, the people have abdicated our duties. For the people who once upon a time handed out military command, high civil office, legions, everything now restrains itself and anxiously hopes for just two things: bread and circuses. Perhaps it's not a coincidence that, Bill Gates is in the bread business, as well as kind of on some level the circus business, right? I mean, he does, after all, own Xbox and other media ventures. So I guess I don't really know what to do about our friend Bill Gates of Hell Gates, other than don't put any money into what Bill Gates puts his money into, right? If you see Bill is dumping his fortunes into this or that product, it's probably the equivalent of rat poison at this point, because from that well-known classic TED Talk.
Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
We have one of two problems here that need to be eliminated, right? And if we can't reduce everything to zero, the human population, it's got to kind of be reduced dramatically. And if ever you needed a good enough reason to stop drinking, just keep in mind that Bill Gates is in the beer business now. And pretty much everything that Bill Gates touches, we should all know, is poison. And if ever you needed a good enough reason to enjoy that wholesome, nutritious, packed full of organic, unvaccinated vegetable, maybe with a side of sausage omelet tomorrow morning, have at it. Enjoy yourself. I can think of no better way than stick it to the man. God bless everybody. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, hit notifications, otherwise this platform will never let you know my next show when it comes out. If it's within your budget, consider buying me a coffee, maybe two. Otherwise, no sweat. Don't worry about it. Sit back, enjoy the show. It's what I'm here for. I'm basically a mountain hermit at this point. That's all I can do is sit here and make shows because it's so damn cold outside. Anyway, this is Nightwatch N8, your host of the Nightwatch Podcast, signing out.
And the final solution is the vaccine.
Gates was momentarily and understandably shaken, but he was not injured.
This percentage that's really misled by these conspiracy theories, it's unclear to me. There's millions of messages out there, where my name or Dr. Fauci's name is used, but do people really believe that stuff? We're going to have to get educated about this over the next year and understand, how does it change people's behavior? How should we have minimized this, either, working with the social media companies or explaining what we were up to in a better way?